Hi, ladies, and welcome to Lingerie and Lattes. My name is Olivia Dramaga. I founded Vulcanability back in April of 2020 in order for ladies and women to really find their path in monogamous relationships and discover pleasure in their bodies. So for today's subject, I want to tap into this idea of my physical products section of Vulcanability, which is Essence of Rose. And so what I want to talk about today is going to be the vibration of a rose, which is 320 megahertz, and how that applies to each one of us. So if we think about the concept of a rose, a lot of the times we love the smell of it, or we see the delicate beauty of the petals, and its stems typically have thorns on it. So why don't we start using that as a metaphor for what's going on inside of us in our lives? If we start to consider what it means for us to be delicate in certain places and also be not necessarily vicious, but perhaps harsh towards ourselves, where does that show up in our lives? So noticing, where is my softness showing up for me in my days? Maybe that's how I interact with animals. I might be very sweet and loving towards dogs and cats and other rabbits and other furry friends. But when I'm discussing relationships with people, maybe that's where the thorns show up. And maybe there's always a little bit more of an aggressiveness or a competitiveness or an inadequacy. So starting to recognize how the idea of a rose in a metaphorical sense applies to who we are as a person, we can start to bring the qualities of each of these different things, whether it's the softness of the petal and the delicate velvet touch that it has, or the prickliness that the thorn can have and the protection that it also provides the rose. So again, this could be a great journaling prompt to start wondering, where am I showing up for myself as this rose petal? And where am I showing up for myself and in my life as the thorn? And if we consider that also in the context of relationships, where is it working? Where is it not working? Where am I being soft and kind and loving towards my partner or towards myself? And where am I becoming a little more abrasive in that sense? So perhaps when it comes to planning for the day, maybe you're excellent at that. Maybe you're excellent at organizing your schedules in order to align when you have to create food or like make your grocery lists or the to-dos. And then the execution could also be extremely smooth and kind of that rose petal energy. But perhaps communication about vulnerable moments or things that you are a little bit nervous to share with your partner, perhaps those always come off at not necessarily the best times, or in a way that the partner feels hurt by you and by your statements. Now, we always want to speak up for ourselves, but in my previous videos, I've always shared the benefit of communication and how the way we say something is going to land in a relationship and to another person. So again, doing that little internal check-in of where am I in regards to this issue? Am I at an emotional level of 10? Can I scale it back to maybe 3 or 5 and take some space before I bring up the subject to my partner? Because then I won't be in such a volatile emotional state where, kind of like the idea of vulcanability, all the emotions just erupt around us like a volcano. Instead of doing that, we can really channel what we want to say to our partner in a way that, even if there's a harsh truth attached to it, which would be essentially the idea of a thorn for the protection. So if we want to protect ourselves in a relationships or protect our relationship from an outside external force, there could be that sense of you get too close and you will get hurt. But how can we do that in a way that also incorporates the lovely smell of the rose, the lovely delicateness and the beauty that it has to it? So many times we consider beauty to be something that is only good and light. However, there's a lot of beauty in perhaps destruction and a bit of chaos and a bit of the world turning upside down. This is also related to the tarot card, the Tower card. So the Tower card, not moment in your life when everything internally, your belief systems are being destroyed, is a very intense moment. There could be a lot of feelings of overwhelmed or sort of wanting to hermit away. But at the same time, there are beautiful things that arise through that rubble. So things that maybe you didn't realize that you had resilience towards a specific subject within your life or within something that you're overcoming in yourself. If we want to take a step back and start to recognize, how can I connect to the message of the rose? A great way to be would be to physically bring that into your life. So perhaps going out and buying yourself a bouquet of roses and recognizing, what color am I drawn to? Because each color has a different meaning attached to it. That's why when you also present roses to someone else, you have to be very intentional, because each color has an associated meaning to it. For instance, the yellow rose is always about optimism and joy, potentially a new opportunity. And to me, it also relates to the angel of, I believe it's Josefa, or of that energy, which always relates to the house and relates to the organization and the beauty of the home. For a pink rose, those are usually referring to friendships or people where you see a lot of connection with, but it could be platonic versus love, a love connection, which would be related to the red rose. And white roses could mean purity, but also you have to be conscious whether it's someone who had a loved one pass away. Perhaps you don't want to bring them over a bunch of red roses or pink roses or even yellow roses. It has to always have the correct meaning and the correct intention behind what you want to gift the other person. So recognizing again, how can you connect to this flower in a metaphorical sense as well as a physical sense? You might want to bring in a rose tea. And I sell that on my Etsy store with Sex in the City. It's a goddess tea. It has a mixed blend of rose, lavender, and mullein. Mullein is very good for the lungs. It actually helps to clear out that heart space, and well, not the heart space, excuse me, the throat space, which for many women is extremely blocked. We have had such a cultural history of not being able to speak up for ourselves. And we can really see this throughout the phenomenon of intimacy, because when women are unable to express themselves vocally during intimate moments in the bedroom, they actually are unable to express their pleasure. So they're not actually able to feel the pleasure if your vocal area is stumped. And I've experienced this before as well. Even if something's feeling not good or good, sometimes you literally can't speak up. Like there's no sound coming from your throat. So that's a blocked throat chakra. And the mullein in that tea is essentially an herb that clears it out both energetically as well as physically. And to have that sort of clear pathway from the heart, so the heart is connected to the rose energy. Lavender, I would suggest, is connected to both the crown and the third eye chakra. Having that mix of those herbs is really going to clear up the upper channels and allowing you to have a bright, clear heart, a heart open space, to have a clear channel for your own intuition and into your own expression of it for the throat chakra, which could be expressed through different kinds of drawings or paintings or artwork, art form, or also through journaling or even public speaking, or even if you want to do like an auto recording of yourself speaking just different ideas. Some people do better with a visual aspect, which is definitely my preferred communication style. I like to do a lot of writing and a lot of visual a visual expression of my thoughts onto paper, but other people prefer to speak and have an audio of what they're going through, kind of letting their thoughts speak through their mouths. And what might also, another herb that's in that Sex in the City goddess tea is called shatavari. So shatavari is essentially the feminine counterpart to ashwagandha, which is what many people are familiar with. Ashwagandha is sort of like the divine masculine counterpart. It has all the energies that you would want in a sense of grounding, in a sense of centering and being present. Whereas shatavari is more of the feminine. So it's nicknamed to be the herb of 1,000 husbands in Sanskrit. So it really ignites all of your libido, and it ignites the sense of feminine sultriness that that really we don't necessarily find in the world in a channeled way. If there is a lot of feminine sensual energy, that can sometimes come off as very vulgar or come off as overly sexualized. And that actually comes from trauma. It does not come from the divine feminine as the expression of your classy, beautiful, sexual nature could show up in your world. So in reminding us that we can tap into the divine essence by the teas we're drinking, by the flowers we're bringing into our homes, by, let's say, artwork that we want to print out or draw or perhaps paint or do a flower arrangement. There's so many ways that we can really connect to the energy of the rose, even if bringing in fresh flowers is not an option for you or not your preference, even if drinking tea isn't really your thing. We can have a rose powder added into a cacao and mixed in that way. We can have the actual roses being presented on our jewelry or on the clothes that we're wearing. Or we can have a rose oil bath or a rose water that we put onto our faces, which is actually one of my favorite rituals, to put rose water onto my face, have it be sort of a toner, pre-toner cleanser. And I guess the cleanser would be the wrong word, but simply adding that rose water, it smells so divine. It's way less expensive to me than the rose essential oils, which could actually be, I believe it is one of the most expensive essential oils out there because it just takes so many rose petals in order to extract the oils. So we have different ways of connecting to this beautiful vibrational flower that can stimulate these questions in our mind. Where am I showing up with this delicate nature? Where am I showing up with this softness? Having the rose petals sprinkled over our beds as we enter into this sacred pleasure space. Having rosebuds be a part of our bath if we want to take a nice, beautiful bubble bath and just sit with this warm water. Perhaps having a yoni steam that also incorporates roses, which is one of my favorite herbs to have in a yoni steam blend because that really goes right directly into our vulva area and releases any of this tense constriction that we might have in the womb space and in the vulva area. Having such a delicate flower be a part of your friends in the planet kingdom is completely necessary as a woman, I would say, because again, it's one of the highest vibrational plants out there with 320 megahertz based on the Schumann resonance spectrum. It is one of the ways that we can connect to the Venusian goddesses that are all related to this idea of a rose. And it's always captivated poets, it's always captivated the artists with its mysterious nature, because again, there's so much delicacy in the bud and into the top of it, and there's so much of a different contrast to the stem and the roots and the protection of a rose that, to me, that duality is really how the feminine shows up in our essence. So we are never going to be just love and light all the time. That's why there's these ideas and these characteristics of a dark feminine and of this wild nature, this uninhibited animalistic creature that a lot of women want to tame or shun from themselves. This primal essence, to me, is represented through these thorns and through this, again, the stark contrast of what a rose is in its completion. So as we go through this next week, I really want you to question, how can I tap more into the delicate parts of myself, and how can I apply those to areas that perhaps are right now more in the thorny section, and noticing where you are more of a thorny energy and a vibration, and how can those actually be cultivated in order to progress you in the world. So perhaps you want that thorniness, that aggressiveness, that dark feminine to come out more when you are at work. I know that's when I want it to come out, because then I'm much more in my masculine. I want things to get done, and I want them to be done in a way that it pushes, or not necessarily pushes, but it progresses me. And it has that energy of action, of Mars, that is forward thinking and again, that action, that sense of constant movement. So when I'm at home, I'd really like more of the delicate nature of the rose to be present because I don't have to be on. I don't want to be. I want to drop into the feminine nature that is rest, restoration, inward journey, and falling into the intellect of my mind of wondering and being able to ponder because I've given myself the space and the time in order to rest, that it lets my mind wander and perhaps bring in new desires or new dreams that I now want to bring into the flesh and the form of the physical matter of the world. Thank you so much, my gorgeous ladies. And if you have any questions, please drop me a comment. Have an absolutely magical weekend and week ahead.